on it right away, again working not just with British Columbia but other neighbors, and we're seeing positive results there, to the point that Governor Inslee has dismantled a mobile facility, and Inslee and his public health officials use it. So I'm confident that the relationships that we have will endure this. I don't know if it brought us any closer together.
All right, hello everybody. Beautiful. Okay, so welcome to the very first arts fair. Excited to be here with you and move into this new way of learning with you all. So I'm just going to bring my screen forward. Can everybody see my screen?
We sure can.
Okay, excellent. So I am Miss Johnson. I'm in drawing and painting, and and painting today is bringing you to abstraction through magnification and repetition. This is some of the elements of art and principles of design. We're going to move through those briefly with you today. And see what we can do with this idea of magnification and repetition, creating an abstract image with you. So we are going to make a little abstraction drawing, and we're going to repeat that abstraction drawing all together today. So before we start, I'm just going to make sure that everybody has materials that you will need. You'll need a couple pieces of paper. That can be printer paper. It can be kids' craft paper. It could be a piece of cardboard, whatever you have available to you. You're gonna need a pair of scissors, pencil, eraser, a felt marker of some kind. And if you would like to incorporate color, any kind of coloring marker, you can do pens, you can use paint if you have access to it, you can use crayons. The thing about being at home and not in our studios is we get to be really creative in how we use the things around us. You could even take your image and sprinkle things like lentils in areas where you want to have some color show, and that brings in another principle of design, which is texture. So we're going to play around today. We're going to have some fun and get started here. So sorry, I'm just reading the chat here to make sure everything's all right. If you don't have your materials, you can run and grab some things up really quickly. And I'm going to move through some of this idea with you. On the front screen here, this beautiful image is a photograph I took through a microscope, and it's showing the cellular structure of a lavender stem. And so in my arts practice, I play around a lot with this idea of magnification and repetition, because we see those in nature. And that idea of abstraction, when we look out at the world around us, say I'm looking out my window and I can see trees and bushes, those trees and bushes have a whole other level to them that is so beautiful. So even in some of my pottery, I play around with that idea. This is the cellular structure of a cedar leaf under microscope at 10 times magnification. And you would look at the center of the cross section and move out of the cross section as you're going up the pot, and see the rim of the pot as how you would see the edges of a cedar leaf. So that idea of abstraction, as we zoom in, can be really fun and help us see the world in a different way that we wouldn't have seen possible. At that same idea, those specific cell types repeat one after the other, one after the other, in fluid, beautiful patterns. So we are going to zoom in, abstract an object, and if we have time, we're going to repeat that image to have a repetitive image of an abstraction of an object. So to do that, we're gonna take a look at some of the elements of art and just keep these in mind as we're moving through. So the elements of art are color. So you can experiment with color as we go through. Line, that is a huge one. We are turning an object in our house into a series of lines that create an abstraction of that object. Texture, shape, space, form. So we're playing with these ideas as we move through. And then here is that idea of pattern and repetition. You can see even in the examples here, as various patterns are used over and over in different sequences, we get interesting and abstraction images. So how's everybody doing now? Can you raise up your hand if you're following along and you're ready to jump into some activity? Or a thumbs up? Beautiful. All right. So we've got this idea of the principles of design. We're jumping on that idea of repetition and pattern and emphasis and movement within our work. And we've got some examples. So we've got gorgeous Islamic art here. This is again taking that idea of using nature as a source and kind of abstracting images in nature and then repeating that pattern and repeating a series of patterns over and over to get a gorgeous image. We see that same idea in wallpaper. Here we've got a leaf that's magnified up in size and repeated. And we see that in sculpture as well. This is using the same idea of shapes where we've got square bricks and using circular holes in various shapes and sizes to have repeating patterns that are very intriguing. And we see that same idea in paintings. So this is more along the lines of what we're going to do today. We're going to take our image and repeat it. You can use the same color, you can just use a black pen, or you can keep moving with colors. Georgia O'Keeffe, she took this idea of magnification in her work and she zoomed in on her sources. Many times she used flowers and zoomed in on a section of a flower so that she could play with fragments of things. So this quote is quite beautiful. Often painted fragments of things because it seems to make my statement as well or as better than the whole could. Sometimes when we see something as a whole, we just look past it. But if we see just a section, it can capture our imaginations. And here is an idea of what we can do today. This is a series of examples of zooming in on a key. So something as simple as a key or a roll of tape or even a ceramic lantern. That's where this image came from, is a zooming in on a ceramic lantern. So we are going to do that. So does everybody have their materials out and ready? Put a thumbs up if you've got everything in order, ready in order to start. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of paper. So one of those pieces of paper, and we're going to make a little box so that we can look through this. This is a viewfinder. We have viewfinders in our cameras, and we are going to make one for us to work from. So you can just cut a hole in the center of a piece of paper. You can fold a piece of paper over, and you can use a ruler. I'll just tilt my screen so you can see what I'm doing here. And you can follow along as I'm doing this. So let's get crafty and make a zoom finder together. So the only thing to think about is what size you would and shape you would like your image. If you want to square image, think about that as you're making your viewfinder. If you want it to be really small, just make a smaller hole in your viewfinder, and then you just cut out that bit of paper. So you can look through. And this is going to help you decipher how to create your composition. And composition is just what you've included in your image. So I am going to draw a section of the bottle caps on these paint bottles. So I have them up in front of me, and because they're lifted up a bit, I'm just going to take my paintbrushes and I'm going to stick my viewfinder in there so that I don't have to hold it up the whole time. And I'm going to use that to zoom in on an area of those paint bottles. Some of you may have problems with your paper being a little bit flimsy. If you have access to a bit of cardboard, this could be something from a cereal box, just any materials that you have available to you. And you just do the same thing. You make a viewfinder. It might be a little bit more challenging to cut out, depending on how thick the material is. But if you've got a thicker material, it might help you in just having it stand up on its own so you don't have to hold it the whole time. And so I've got these here, and I'm just gonna find a really interesting view and make it so that it doesn't quite look like it originally is a bunch of paint bottles. So I'll give you guys just a moment, and you can choose an object around your house that you would like to draw and make your viewfinder. And as you do that, here's an image of how to use a viewfinder. Somebody's just tacked it up on their easel here. And you can do this for large scale landscape paintings or something where you're wanting to zoom in. Here's an example of different areas of a bicycle that have been zoomed in upon. So what we're doing today is using your zoom finder. You're going to zoom in on an object and find an interesting composition within that object. And we're going to take our next piece of paper and fold it in half twice. Until we have 4 separate spaces in our piece of paper. And using one of these areas, we're going to draw what we see in our viewfinder. And just make sure that what we're zooming in on is an abstraction. So we want it to look not like what it originally started from. You don't have to hand them in when you're done, but what we're what would be fun is if we had a collection of them, and hopefully we can share those as a group in a fantastic art fair showcase. So raise your hand if you have your viewfinder, a piece of paper, pencil to start, and an object to draw from, and we will all get started. As you gather your materials and begin drawing, I'm going to draw along with you, and I'll lower my screen just so that you guys can see what I'm doing here. All right, so we've got an egg, we've got scissors, a tiny elephant. Excellent. So grab your viewfinder and we will start to play around with this. And this doesn't have to be a perfect image. If drawing's new to you, that's okay. This is all about fun and a chance to think about things a little bit differently and just enjoy ourselves as a community here. And on these paint bottles, I've got bits of paint that are smeared on here and making interesting texture. So I might add a little bit of that into my drawing.
You've got a lot of different objects today. We've got almonds and fans and pocket lights and lamps.
Excellent. And once you've got a basic sketch, you can take some paint, or you can take a crayon or a felt marker and start to solidify some of those lines, some of those images. So if you have any questions, just let me know and I can help anyone move through this. I might block out some areas in straight ink just to get some interesting patterns going on. And as you're moving through this, just think about where the areas of the lines are. And if there's somewhere that maybe needs a little bit more emphasis, we can just block in and make some lines thicker. And you can repeat patterns. So say these parallel lines I'm doing here. I can bring them in another area of the work just for some fun and for some balance in the composition. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of this in here. This is where those crusted bits of paint were. And once you're done that image, what you can do is you can trace it into another one of those blocks. So I've used a Sharpie, so it's going to be easy to see. So I can see through to the other side, and I can just trace this image and start to get that idea of repetition in here. And if you're having a challenging time tracing this, you can hold it up to a window, and as the light comes through, you'll be able to see your original drawing a lot easier. So I'm going to do that here. I'm just going to open up this window. And I'm going to just hold my work of art on my window and trace it. And this is bringing in that idea of repetition. So we've already abstracted an object by zooming in. And now we're bringing in that principle of design of repetition. You guys see, or is it too light? And we can continue doing that in the other 3 boxes. We just fold the paper in different ways to do so. And I can go in and continue that same pattern in ink. And again, this can be any material you have, whether it be pen and ink, paint. You can even fill blocks of color in with things like beans. I just saw in the chat, there's somebody doing a banana and an apple. You can get really interesting compositions by cutting open those fruits and seeing the cross sections of the seeds and the fruit. How's everyone doing? Is everyone having fun? You can give us a thumbs up if you're having a good time. All right, so here's where I'm at now, and you can start to see how that abstraction really comes in when we zoom in and abstract that original image and then start to repeat. So what you guys can do is if you'd like, you can continue this and you can finish your image and email it to Mr. Lee. He's got his contact information up in here. And I hope you enjoyed our very first arts fair. You guys have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wonderful morning, depending on where you are in the world. And you can ask me any questions if you are having any challenges moving forward. But otherwise, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me and playing around with some art. So take care, everybody.
Was fantastic.
Thank you.
And they're heading off to their arts classes. This is captured on YouTube, so I'll share the link with you shortly. And I've got a couple of submissions coming in right now.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay, did I go too long? I thought it went till 2:40.
2:45 is fine. I think the
Okay.
students are always going to want to run away and have a snack before the next class. So fantastic. What you did
Oh,
great is that you broke the ice for all the other arts teachers that are going to do the same thing. So they're listening to us right now. If you want to chat with us, raise your hand and we'll give you mic control. So we can in the tool, Ms. Johnson, ask the students to raise their hand and we can actually highlight them in attendees and allow them to talk. So you actually have the ability to bring them in to chat if you want to do it. If you do more of these, and that's something that you can do.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, it was a little disconcerting. I couldn't see anyone's hands going up, so.
Yeah, that's I was using the chat to keep you apprised of that.
Thank you.